All right.
Uh,
What is the opposite of a friendship?
the thing that comes to mind for me is like, I mean, if you're not a friend, you're an enemy. Like, what? I mean, you if you're not adding value to me, I can't call you a friend. Then again, I mean, you're not necessarily an enemy per se because you probably don't have any ill intentions for me. At the same time, I mean, the opposite of a friend. If I consider you a friend and you're no longer a friend, then it's just like, yeah, you're an enemy at that point. From my understanding, they're not friends. Uh, they're enemies. And I mean, you can take the word enemy, do with that as you will, but at the same time, they're oppositions. They're not on the same side. I'll say that they're not on the same side, from my understanding. I could be wrong, but from my understanding, they're not on the same side.
Long lasting friendships have limitations that both parties have to abide by and respect. How do you react to those friends that don't respect those barriers?
If you don't respect barriers, then you gotta cut them off, regardless of who you are. If you don't respect barriers, I gotta cut you off because then you're a detriment to my peace. And if you cost me my peace, then it's just like I don't want no affiliations with you.
How do you know if you don't want to be cool with someone after a heated moment?
Once I realize I'm good, once I realize your presence no longer has any value within my life, then I'm cool.
Has there ever been a time when you naturally fell off with someone and it was all love on both sides?
Has there ever been a time I fell off with a person and it was love on both sides? I I do not know.
Because most of the time you fall off with someone is due to something that happened, is due to someone that one of the parties did to be.
Which, I understand that, and not to cut your wisdom, I understand that. I will say, maybe not in the moment. Uh Maybe not in the moment. However, over the course of time, I have nothing but love for the people that I no longer have a close relationship with, or the people that I no longer have a relationship with. I wish them the best. Peace be upon them. In a situation where I no longer see value in the presence of a person, I'm okay with not having your presence in my existence.
Okay. Has there ever been a time when your clique of friends had to alter the bro code to satisfy a certain individual in a group rather than kicking them out?
Nah, we stand on business.
Okay.
We stand on business. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have morals and principles, then what do you have? If I give you my word and I'm not able to honor my word, how valuable is my word?
Distinguish the difference between an intervention, compromise, and a resolution. And these don't have to be the exact definitions, but definitions that mean importance to you.
Okay. Intervention. I think an intervention is when you have people who care about you, who realize that you are going who realize you are going in a downward spiral, and they want to bring awareness to that particular aspect that you're going through, and communicating that with you in order for you to realize that particular aspect within yourself as well. A compromise, I think compromising is just like, hey, let's find common ground. If I want one thing and you want one thing, and we are not in agreement of the individual said thing that they want, then what's 50-50, or what's a common ground that we can both agree upon? I think that's compromise. I think a resolution is just coming up with a solution. So it's just like whatever problem that you're going through, what are the actions that can generate the end result in order for you to solve the problem that you are going through, because that then becomes your resolution.
How often are you invested in a friendship after intervention, compromise, or resolution?
I only involve with myself with people that I love. So I'm heavily invested in people that I consider close to me, people that I consider friends. Whatever it is that they're going through, I'm heavily invested into making sure that they're able to make it through the other side of said situation, and they're able to thrive. I'm invested in seeing the people around me thrive in whatever environment, spaces they find themselves to be in.
So basically, as long as, regardless of the conflict that occurs, as long as there's a middle ground, you're gonna find a way to still be cool with that individual.
As long as there's no broken morals or principles within that said situation, yes.
Okay.
And I find value in having that person still within my life.
How often has a resolution, compromise, or intervention occurred with you and your core friends?
We've had interventions. I think we as a core group, we probably wouldn't categorize it as interventions. However, if you look at the entire format in which we're having the conversation, it could, or the environment that we create for a particular friend, you could probably say that that's an intervention. Um, I've had, I don't believe I don't believe I've had to be involved in an intervention where I was the focal point. Um, I would say I've been a part of interventions. As far as compromises, I think I made compromises. I'll have to really sit down and think about the various compromises that I've made over the course of time and resolution. I think within my friend group, I think we spend a majority of the time of finding compromises and resolutions as opposed to interventions. Now, we do have interventions once in the blue moon. I probably wouldn't, the wording might be a bit different. I probably wouldn't use the word intervention, but for the sake of conversation, I can see how a person would interpret that as.
I agree because to discuss my personal experiences, resolution and compromise have been pretty common. Now, when you dive into interventions, those are approaches that parents try to use, family members, parents, so, friend groups, we don't try to use interventions unless that friend is really getting out of control and out of pocket to where we got to use an intervention for them. But
One would argue, or one could make the argument for your friends group knows more of your troubles than your parents, per se. So if a person, or if there were a group of individuals who would most likely need to initiate the intervention with that particular person, it would be the friend group as opposed to the parents, just because of the simple fact that I think friends are more in tune with what the said individual is doing as opposed to their parents. Now, granted, that's just a general statement. Parents can very well, the parents who are very much so involved in their child's life to where they can see or they have that type of relationship and communication where like they're knowing of what their child is doing. Okay, cool. Majority of the time I will comfortably say that your friends know, they have a greater insight and detail to the troubles that you as a person may potentially be going through, and who would most likely need to be the ones to initiate the intervention if things were to go in a like detrimental downward spiral.
Out of the three, what is your preferred method?
It's situational based. Once again, I think it kind of comes down to what said individual needs and what the situation calls for. Um, I don't think I personally don't have a I personally do not have a bias to any three of the categories. I'll be a part of any three. If it's the resolution, you come to me with a problem, then we're gonna find a resolution.
How about this? Let me give a better scenario.
Okay.
Let's say it was a Saturday night
Mhm.
and a close friend and a best friend was coming to town. But at that same night that this was occurring, you had one of these three occurring. So to kind of speed up the process, which one of these three would you have occurring so that you would be better off engaging with that friend that popped out for the night? Basically, which one is easier to deal with so that you could just get it done with and be out and about with that friend that happened to have came the same night that one of these three events are happening.
Compromise, because with compromise, at least we all know what to expect. It's like, hey, we came to this agreement, and this is what, based on the decisions that was laid out in front of us, this is what everyone is able to agree on. Interventions can be rather intense, so I don't think energetically it puts people in the best of moods. Resolution, I mean, you can come up with a resolution, and that doesn't mean that the person would want to act on that resolution at that very moment. But at least when we compromise, it's like, all right, we know what we're finna get ourselves into. You know, like we agreed on X, Y, Z, so we're gonna do X, Y, Z. So it's easier to facilitate, and it's a smoother transition into like just everybody enjoying each other's time.
So, which out of those three situations would you say can easily get out of control?
Intervention,
Okay.
definitely intervention.
Ihu, thank you for your time for this discussion.